The story behind the Rockefeller Christmas tree. Once upon a time, long ago during the Great Depression, life was hard for many families. Jobs were scarce, money was tight, and the holiday season didn't feel as joyful as it used to. But even in those tough times, the spirit of Christmas had a way of shining through in unexpected places. In the bustling city of New York, construction workers were busy building something incredible, what would one day be known as Rockefeller Center, a place that would soon become famous all over the world. But back then, it was just a large, cold construction site filled with steel beams, concrete, and dust. Among the workers was a man named Joe, who came to work every day with a heavy heart. Like many of the others, Joe had a family to support. His children were hoping for a special Christmas, but with money so tight, Joe wasn't sure if he could make that happen. As he hammered away at beams and hauled heavy materials, he noticed the same worried looks on the faces of his fellow workers. One cold December day, after a long shift, Joe and the other workers sat together during their break, talking quietly. The usual laughter and stories had been replaced by silence, as everyone was thinking about the same thing. Christmas was coming, but it didn't feel like it at all. That's when Joe had an idea. "You know," he said, looking around at his friends, "just because we don't have much doesn't mean we can't bring a little Christmas cheer to this place." The others looked at him, puzzled. "What do you mean, Joe?" asked one of the workers. "What if we pooled together whatever money we can spare and bought ourselves a Christmas tree?" Joe suggested. "Nothing fancy, just something to remind us of what this season is really about: hope, togetherness, and the spirit of giving." The men were quiet for a moment, thinking. It wasn't much, but it was something. Slowly, one by one, the workers nodded in agreement. They might not have a lot of money, but they could spare a little to bring some Christmas magic to their work site. The very next day, Joe and a few others went out to find the perfect tree. They didn't have enough for a grand tree, but they found a simple, scraggly pine tree that stood about 20 feet tall. It wasn't the biggest or the most beautiful, but it was enough to lift their spirits. When they brought the tree back to the construction site, something amazing happened. The workers, who usually seemed tired and worried, suddenly became full of energy. They decorated the tree with whatever they could find: strings of paper, tin cans, and even bits of scrap metal from the site. As they stood back to admire their creation, something magical began to happen. The once gloomy construction site seemed brighter, warmer, and full of hope. The workers smiled, laughed, and for the first time in a long while, felt the true joy of Christmas. Word about the tree spread quickly, and soon, people from all over the city came to see it. It wasn't just a tree, it was a symbol of hope, reminding everyone that even in the darkest times, there's always light to be found. That night, as the workers gathered around the tree, Joe couldn't help but feel proud. He looked at the twinkling lights they had strung together and the smiles on his friends' faces. They had started something special. What Joe and his fellow workers didn't know was that their simple act of kindness would turn into something much bigger. Year after year, the tradition continued. The tree grew taller and more beautiful each Christmas, and it wasn't just for the workers anymore. It became a symbol for the entire city, and eventually, the world. And so, what started as a small gesture of hope during a difficult time turned into one of the most famous Christmas traditions in history, the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. Every year, people from all over the world come to see the tree, and it reminds them of the power of togetherness, kindness, and the magic of Christmas. No matter how tough things get, that tree stands tall, lighting up the night sky and filling hearts with joy.